Hi, it's Paul Bain. This is GreatDad.com, and we're here with another one of our weekly programs, meeting dads with a point of view. And I'm excited today to talk to Brent Dowlen, who's also a coach like me, a relationship and personal development coach. But you've done a lot of thinking on relationship with families and with kids and parenting, and I'm happy to have you here, Brent.
Thank you, Paul. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
So Brent has a podcast and a website called thefallibleman.com, and the podcast is called The Fallible Man. And I'm interested just right off the top why you chose to name it The Fallible Man when ostensibly it's more aspirational about that. I know your message is more about like being your best self. So why'd you choose that as the name?
One of my big focuses, I always encourage people to lead with humility. I wanted men to know up front, I'm not claiming to be perfect. I don't have it all figured out. I am on my own journey, and I may be on a different stage of the journey than some other men. Some men are farther than me, some men aren't. And I'm just trying to take as many men with me on that positive journey as possible. But right, we as men to get a little bit, growly when it comes to, it's like, oh yeah, I got this. No, I don't got this all down. I'm a work in progress. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a man. I've got this major process going on through my life, and I don't have it all figured out, but I have some ideas I think are worth sharing. And so I want to just everybody to know up front, we're not pretending we're better or smarter than you. We're on a journey, and we just want you to go with us.
Yeah. I love that. I named my thing Great Dad, but it never was meant to be like I'm a great dad or I'm going to make you into a perfect dad. But it's like the same thing with you. We're always striving to be that better thing. Luckily, I think men or dads are quite often allowed to be great, whereas moms would never pretend to be great. But dads kind of get that moniker really easily. That's why I call it that. But I love that humility part, and I love the fact that you talk about your own journey. It took me a long time in my life just to get to the point where I realized that, first of all, life is not a rehearsal. This is all you get. And the second thing is that it's your life and not your mother's life, your dad's life, your friend's life, anybody else's, but you have to decide how you live it, and you're under control of it. And I know you've got two daughters. I'm sure this is all you're learning along the way with them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Great teachers, right?
Oh yes. I thankfully had being where we are in my family. I have nieces who are adults now, and I have nieces who are babies. Like, we have the full spectrum between my wife and I. But I also am former youth minister. I dedicated a significant portion of my life to working with kids as young as third grade up to freshmen in college. And so I had a lot of years working in those age groups alongside amazing parents and alongside some parents who were struggling a little bit. And right. So I've had the benefit of other people's wisdoms and experience as I walk this journey as part of their kids' life as well. So that was definitely helpful before we had our kids. It's like, okay, we got this. I gotta admit, I was actually more nervous about the newborn stage. Like, I'm actually looking forward to their teenage years because I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, that's really great experience because you got to a little bit of learning. And did you get a chance to see a little bit of other people's parenting styles and how the different ways people? I mean, families come in all different shapes and sizes and different philosophies. So and you were able to pick and choose a little bit from all those different things.
Oh yeah, I know. In youth ministry, I know different youth ministers do a different way, but I become very integrated with the families of the kids that I was working directly with, because I'm this small piece, but to be able to I make sure I can help them. I get to know their siblings, I get to know their parents, and have long conversations with them and what their preferences are and what they think about as they're raising their kids, right? I always approached it as a partnership. I got to partner with parents to have the blessing of getting to be a part of that child's life, right? I'm just a small piece to come alongside and help in certain areas. And so I got to see some just incredible parents who were utterly inspiring to me. And I got to see some parenting styles where I thought, well, I think that could be improved. But, I also found out, having my own children, right? You go into having children thinking it's like, okay, you looked at your friends or your siblings, you're like, I will never do that as a parent. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Right. You're so judgmental before you have your own children.
Right.
But then you have your own kids and you're like, I said I was never going to do this,
Right.
but
Or you might have just a little bit more grace for when the parents don't quite live up to the perfect exacting standard. My son mentioned the fact that he talked to one of his teachers from high school, and during their in high school they had the parents come in and like do an evening thing where you participated in one of their class projects kind of. And this teacher told my son afterwards, he said it's just so amazing because when I meet the parents and see them talking, I can, it totally meshes. Like I totally get why you are the way you are. And he didn't put any value judgment. He didn't say like why you're so great, why you're so impossible to control or anything. He just said, I just see the connection.
oh yeah, it's undeniable. Your kids are an interesting mix of you and your spouse with their own twist thrown in a personality. It's actually really fun for me as a parent with younger kids, right? Mine are 9, 11, like you said. And it's really interesting because my wife and I, there's definitely the nice phrase like she's your child, right?
Right.
But mostly that's in joking, but you can definitely see the personality traits from one side or the other. And you definitely see it with other people's kids. You're like, if you are fortunate enough to have a relationship with that parent, you're like, oh yeah, that's your, like my friend. I was like, yeah, that is your kid, dude.
Yeah.
No hiding that. That's all you.
Well, so let's drill down a little bit. I want to talk about some of the concepts that you talk about on your website that are really important in this conversation, because I think society we're changing in terms of our conception of what masculinity is. I mean, everybody's talking about toxic masculinity, and I get scared when people talk about it like that, like everything male is somehow suddenly bad. And when I think that there are things that are very powerful in being a man, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how you see the definition of a man and what the definition of a dad is. I'd really love to hear your perspective on that.
Okay. Well, so, I don't mean this offensive to whoever's listening. I define a man as a biological construct. Okay. You're
Mhm.
born male or born female. Now, I know popularly right now, that's not always the most popular opinion, but that is the way I define it. If you're born a man, you're male. You're born a male. You might become a man, right? You're going to become an adult male. Will you
Well,
become a man?
I think we can agree if you identify as a man, and you're a
Right.
man. I mean, you would be wanting to have the values that we would probably discuss as
Right.
being
So you
a man
become
with
a
values.
male, and then the CIC man is something you grow into, right? Male is the biological construct. Man is something you choose to
Right.
grow into. Men step up. Men take responsibility for who they are. Men step into the person they're going to be and their responsibilities, right? I know a lot of, 20s and even 30 and 40-year-old males I would not call men, right? So, and I may be a harsh critic of that, but to me, there's a certain level where you cross from I'm a male to I'm actually a man. And that has a lot to do with responsibility and stepping up in your life and becoming a valuable piece to society that contributes and helps things and sees life bigger than you.
Mhm.
Right. Dad's a gift. Right. Any, I've seen the sign probably 1,000 times, but there's that little sign or a t-shirt that says any man can be a father. It takes a real man to be a dad.
Mhm.
Right. Men can have children. They can father children. Being a dad is like going from male to man. It's father to dad. Dad is a blessing. Dad is a gift.
Yeah.
It's an honor to get to be that.
Yeah.
You earn the right to be dad
Yeah.
by the way you interact with your children, by the way you take care of your children. It's a gift,
Yeah.
right? We know the biology of how children are born, right? So any male who can father a child can father a child. I know a lot of fathers who are useless. I know a lot
Okay.
of fathers who are absentee. I
Yeah.
know a lot of fathers who just aren't there.
Yeah.
Not one of them are dads,
Uh-huh.
right? Dads came to play. Dads are there to step up and lead and guide and comfort and walk alongside their children in a meaningful way.
Mhm. maybe that there we're talking about a distinction that's kind of like a father who fathered children versus a dad that is kind of it is a special relationship. I mean, even in my own mind, I don't think of myself often as a father, but a dad.
Yeah.
Like you say, I mean, I think you really summed it up. This whole idea of, I mean, everybody uses the word intentional right now, but the walking alongside, supporting, comforting, which sometimes are thought of as kind of feminine values, but I think they are really masculine values in a different way than what mom provides. I mean, some of these things that we talk about, like you wouldn't say a woman shouldn't be, or a mom shouldn't be supportive, caring, protective, all these things that are kind of male, what maybe we think of as male values. But the dad spin is a little different on that, right? I think in some way, maybe I can't even put my finger on.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my own mindset, that's why it takes two, right?
Yeah.
Mother brings something incredibly unique to parenting that a father can never do.
Yeah.
Likewise, a father has a unique role, or dad has a unique role in raising children that, you know, a mother can do her best. She's not going to be able to do everything a dad does, and vice versa, right? Like I said, a dad cannot do everything a mother can do. Moms love unconditionally. I mean, just incredibly unconditionally, and they're comforting, and you can always go to mom, right? Mom is safety. Mom is security in the fact that no matter who, no matter what, I'm loved unconditionally. Dads give their children courage.
Mm-hmm.
Dads are the one you go to dust off the skin knee and say, you're okay. You're not going to lose the leg. You know what? You can do it. You almost had it. Let's get back and do it again.
Yeah.
Dads give children, and they empower children to live courageously in a way that moms can't. And I mean, there's a lot of other traits we could really start breaking down, moms versus dads. All those traits are incredibly important for a child, for raising a healthy child.
Yeah.
But each side definitely has the power they bring into that child's life.
Yeah, I've talked to. I'd love to get deeper into that. We probably don't have a lot of time, but I've talked to with previous shows. I've talked to Dr. Robert Brooks and some other experts on this whole idea of the gender dynamic of the parents and the kids, and how this idea of two parents, a mom and a dad, is so key. And in same-sex relationships, it's quite often they quite often find a woman friend or a dad friend or a male friend to play that role, because we do parent differently, and having those two things together is real key, no matter how you identify. So I want to go from there to kind of the things that you define a man or a dad, which I find really profound and inspiring, to the 7 traits that you think that are really important that men or dads develop as part of this thing, that because it ties in with what I've always talked about, which is family, the values that we define, and how consistent we are with those values, what we define as our most important values, and how we transmit them, much to, tying in with what we said at the beginning. So what are those 7 traits that you feel that every man should develop?
Well, and those 7 traits are core, because as a father, you living that example helps your kids build those traits too, right? So I'll run through the list real quick, and then we can go into any one you want. How's that?
Sounds good.
So the 7 traits are discipline, integrity, honor, which often gets blurred with integrity,
Mhm.
ownership. I
Mm.
believe extreme ownership. I don't know if you're a fan of Jocko Willink, but his book on extreme ownership just compounded my own beliefs in that system already. Having a growth mindset. Men, it's crucial for men to have a growth mindset. A valuing a level of self-care, because this is the first place that men drop themselves off, is self-care. We stop taking care of ourselves at a certain point. And so you can call it healthcare, self-care, you can call it health, but our own physical and emotional, spiritual well-being. So it's really total self-care, because this is an area where most men lack. It's the first thing when we give up. We sacrifice that to take care of our responsibilities 90% of the time. It's the first thing to go. And the last thing is humility. Like I said about the title of the show, humility is both powerful and extraordinary, and it's very important. And all of us guys can let our egos run amok with us, right? Men can definitely do that. But I think these 7, if you can start to hone these 7 traits, these 7 values in your life, then you will become a well-rounded man.
Mm-hmm. And not easy to do, right? I mean, I think a lot of people get with the, I don't know where I was having a conversation or listening to something yesterday about how we get into this kind of autopilot, especially during the childhood years, because we're just so overwhelmed with the day job and exhausted and coming home and trying to get through whatever it is, bath time, reading, making dinner, all the rest of the stuff. And next thing you know, 10 years has gone by and you didn't really, you wanted those values, but you didn't really, keep on bringing them to the fore. They're all great things. How do you get into the habit of these, making these traits part of your daily life so you don't forget and, remember them too late?
So I'm actually a big fan of visual reminders, because I do. I forget, people, everybody are so busy these days. We are just insanely busy people. And for some reason, we think that that's important, that the more busy we are, obviously, the more important we are, right? So for me, I need visual reminders. So I'm a big fan of, like, I have a whiteboard you can't see on the other side of this camera. And I have these values written there. I have other things written there that are just visual. I can stop and look at them and go, okay, get on point, Dowlen. You got to get this right. Because everything we talked about is and requires intentionality. You can't do it by accident. Without intentionality, this isn't going to happen to you, right? But it is an overwhelming list. Like those 7 things, you can devote your entire life. And as you go down that path, you will devote your entire life to building yourself in those characteristics in a strong way. You'll have room to grow. And the more that humility teaches you, the more you get better at it, the more room you actually have to grow, right? As you learn. So my approach to helping people through this, right, is I'm also a certified personal trainer. I have a long history of doing training, and I have the same approach in the gym that I do in the rest of my life, is incremental improvement. I see it all the time with my clients who are lifting, right? I'm watching you do your sets on, say, bench press. And you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I've been doing the same weight for several weeks now. It's like, yeah, but you're getting better. And they don't see it because they're just looking at the weight. I'm looking at how long they're resting between sets. I'm looking at how fluid the motion is as they go through it, how tired they are after each set, right? I'm looking at all the little micro measurements because that tells me they're getting stronger. If I'm not seeing that, then I need to change up the way their plan is working.
Right.
And it's the same thing in your life. You can't hit it out of the park every day. You're not going to hit a home run every day. Bad sports analogies, I know. You're not going to do this. Every day is not a huge, Ewok party, right? Battle of Endor kind of thing. Every day is not that, right? There are a lot of days where you are just glad to be alive and you put your kids down to bed and you see your partner and you're just like, I'm so done for the day. I'm glad, right? We all have in fact, those days far outnumber the big celebrations. So, some people talk about 1% better. I talk about one choice. Make one conscious choice today. As a man, as a husband, as a father, however you are working, right? And you have all those different parts of your life because you're not one thing. You're a lot rolled into one package. So pick one thing. Today, I'm going to do X better. I'm going to consciously choose I'm going to go for a walk after I eat lunch because I need to get moving because I sit at a desk all day. That's one of the places it actually started with me, is I was writing a computer desk and I could eat while I was working. So I started eating at my desk and I'd take my required 30-minute lunch and I'd walk laps around my building because I sat at a desk for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so it started with just however many laps I get then, right? And as I did it more, I got a little faster And so it was like, well, how many can I get done, right? Without breaking into a run, how many laps can I get done? Then it was like I hit kind of a benchmark. It was like, okay, I'm going to walk at least this far during lunch.
Mhm.
And then I stopped listening to music and started putting in audiobooks and going back to feeding my mind while I was taking that walk, right? You build things through repetitions. You get stronger through repetitions. So pick one thing at the beginning of the week. Say, this is my goal for the week. And today I'm going to focus on this one point.
Mhm.
I'm going to get up and walk at lunch, or I'm going to read 5 pages of a book. Will sharpen my mind. And I include audiobooks in that, guys. So I understand entirely. I love audiobooks. I like real books, but I love audiobooks too, because it lets me read more, because I can
Mhm.
read while I'm doing other things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
pick one thing and say, today I'm going to do this. Here's my goal for the week, because we're working on upgrading our dadhood today, right? We're being better dads this week. And pick one choice today. It's Monday, right? So let's go with one choice on Monday or one choice on Tuesday and go, today I'm going to do this with my children
Mhm.
to improve my relationship with them. I'm going to put 30 minutes on my schedule today, which is just their time, right? I'm going to fix that toy I told them I'd fix, right? Little things go a huge distance when you're talking about your kids, but little things go a huge distance when you're talking about becoming a better you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's that flywheel effect. I think the more you do this and more you do it intentionally, the faster it goes. Why do you think it is that men, I hear this a lot, that men need more reminders? I mean, even to the extent of like having reminders on the phone to, tell your kid you love them, or remind, just anything. But we seem to need that reminder versus maybe moms that do it a little bit more organically. And should there be shame around the fact that we need to be reminded, or is that just part of how we're wired and maybe we need to?
No. Shame. Drop the shame, guys. Don't, please.
Thank you.
It's not that. It is a difference in the way that men and women process things. And it's not a judgment on either. There's not a wrong way.
Right.
It is there. Your brain is actually hardwired at a biological level. Men compartmentalize their brain functions and processes data differently than women do. Women are generally more in touch with their feelings, right? We're familiar with that concept that women are, oh, I wish guys were more in touch with their feelings. But the problem is, I read a book, it was written, I want to say back in like the 80s or the 90s, I don't remember, called Men Are Waffles, Women Are Spaghetti. And it is the most vivid metaphor that I can possibly give you. Men compartmentalize that way. We have individual little boxes for everything. And so when we're in work mode, we're in that. Or since I have an IT background, I don't know if you ever seen the old tape machines they show in movies where it's got the robotic on one tape at a time.
Yeah.
That's the way our brain works. We process one thought and we're present in that thought.
Right. Yeah.
If we switch gears, we actually have to stop for a second and let that tape pull this one, put it back where it goes in its very selected, compartmentalized spot, and grabs the other tape we need for the next thought.
Yeah.
Whereas women everything is connected through emotion because they experience it differently than men do. And so you can start right on a plate of spaghetti. If you start at one end of a piece of spaghetti noodle sitting on a plate, right, it touches every other noodle as it goes. And so everything is interwoven in the way that women process things. They don't separate their emotion. They don't separate their subject. If they touch at all, they make sense for them. Like I said, it's not wrong. It's a different way of processing. And so that's why guys need more reminders, like on your phone or a visual reminder, because we have to literally switch pieces of what we're doing because we get into this mode and we're on this focus and intention and we're doing this, right? It's very easy for most men to get into, right, I'm fixing this bike. Right now I'm fixing this bike and there's nothing else in the world but me fixing this bike and what goes along with that, right? And we look down at our watch and realize, oh, we're late for something because we're here and none of the rest of this is percolating at all. It's just waiting till we need it. We have to switch gears. I live by my calendar. I'm a perfect example of this. I live and die by my calendar. to the point where I intentionally have a block of time on my schedule for my daughters every week, just because I know I'm busy. I actually have it scheduled on my calendar. I have one afternoon a week from 4 p.m. till they go to bed at 8:30 is their time. Nothing else exists. I don't cook dinner. I don't help out around the house. I don't fix things. I don't take calls. I don't read emails. I don't touch my phone. It's just me and my kids. My wife is home. My mom lives with us. They may be here. They may be involved with what we're doing or not. But for me, this is it right here.
Yeah, I think that in itself is really a big thing, because I quite often we're in the family and we think we're family time because the family's all there, but it is that kind of focus where you've set aside the hour or the half hour to help them with the homework or read a book or whatever, all those opportunities. And whether you need a reminder or not, I mean, sometimes you do, or just putting it in your calendar, or knowing that that's the habit, that's the key thing of being there.
I tell you, Paul, I had a breakthrough moment when I was sitting and watching TV with my daughter, right? We were watching, it was like 2 years ago. We were sitting and watching television. It was a movie we'd seen 100 times, right? It's every kids go through those phases where they watch or whatever movie it is 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Movie we had seen more times than I can count, right? And I'm sitting and my daughter is tucked up under my arm, snuggled up next to me, and I'm kind of scrolling through my phone, and she's looking at me. I'm like, "Why are you watching me instead of the movie?" She's like, "You said you were going to watch the movie with me." I said, "Baby, I'm right here." She said, "But you're not watching the movie with me." I said, "Honey, I've watched this 1,000 times." And she just kind of looked at me. I said, "Do I need to put my phone down?" And she reached over and gently put her hand on my hand and pushed the phone down. And it was this moment of, wow, I'm here with her physically, but I'm not present.
Yeah.
And that was a real wake up call, because I wouldn't have thought that was not present because I was physically cuddling with her.
Right.
So that wouldn't have occurred to me. And it was like, wait, what? Her brain, her eyes, the way she sees the world, that's not present.
Yeah.
And so then I had to actually sit down and like reformulate the way I looked at some things.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the phone is both a blessing and a curse in that example, because it is a tangible thing. I mean, back before phones, I think parents kind of checked out in different ways.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as tangible. Whereas with the phone, if you tell your kids, no phones while we're reading the bedtime story or at dinner or whatever, they can actually help you with that, like your daughter did. It was a gentle reminder, like, be with me now.
And then you see the same thing, right? Like, so you're right. They're blessings and curses. I'm really more and more these days. I have more animosity towards people being in the same room on their digital devices.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, we're all sitting here, but we're all in our own little worlds.
Yeah.
I look around restaurants. I see it all the time. You see a family sitting down at a meal. They've gone out to eat. For my house, that's a big thing. We went out to eat together. That's a big night. People sitting there scrolling on their phones. Their kids are sitting there. And just like, wow. Unplug from your phone. Plug into this dinner.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could do a whole discussion on that whole thing about the dopamine hit that you get from the phone, and why in the moment you are willing to give up a precious second with your child. That's a magic moment that is the most important world of your own, for that chance to read some stupid headline about a celebrity or whatever, and why there's that pull, and then how we feel both drawn to it and then bad about it at the same time, because we know it's wrong. We know that the thing that the family thing is the most important thing, yet sometimes we're pulled away from it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you and I could solve that right now.
one of the issues where we start digging into discipline, right?
Yeah.
Everything. I've been doing this for 3 years now, talking to men, working with men in different aspects of their lives. Before that, I worked with a lot of teenagers, and that's why I boil it down to these 7 things, really, because if you can exercise these 7 things on the different aspects of your life, right? It takes discipline. We're addicted to our phone. We are literally addicted to our phones at this point. We're literally addicted to screens, and everything on those devices is meant to addict you.
Yeah.
Right. It takes ownership of who I am and what I want and where I want to be. Like, this is on me to make that choice.
Yeah.
It takes discipline to put it down when you're distracted and to be in the moment, right? And really, it takes some integrity, because we just want to keep sneaking away and
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And
And
if
so,
when you fail, it's not you're not you're a bad person, but you're
yeah, you made a bad choice.
yeah, you made a bad choice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that in a big way is we're our choices.
Yeah.
Right. There are a lot of people who make poor decisions. I'm one of them. I know that. And so, a lot of that's why when you said shame, it's like, please, no shame. That is the enemy that keeps you in the box. As a dad, as a man, as a person, as a human, shame is the enemy that keeps you in the box. It keeps you doing things you shouldn't do or that you don't really want to be doing. It makes you a slave to it, because once you start feeling that shame, now you're trapped there. You don't want to talk to anybody about it. Now you're embarrassed by it. Now you don't want to get help by it, from it, right? And so that's why I reacted so strongly. It's like, no.
Oh,
Shame is,
that's a
we're
great
all
thing, you know.
about bad.
Shame is always almost weird because it almost gives you permission, because it tells you I am this bad person that does this bad thing, and I'm going to
Right.
continue doing the bad thing, rather than saying I have the potential to make that better choice.
It's a power spiral.
Yeah.
In a negative direction.
Yeah. Well,
And so,
I would love to give everybody that challenge for today is notice when you're using that phone, when you're tempted to use that phone in social situations, and just think about just at least think about the fact that, do I really need to do this right now? And maybe question why you're looking at that phone rather than talking to your partner or talking to your child, when you can make that choice. It triggers me every time I want to do it, and I sometimes I'm with the family and I want to do it and I don't do it, or I do it, but I it makes me think, like, what is this thing going on? So it's worth inquiring.
I understand we're all busy, right? Unless you're making a living off your phone. I mean, if you are in a business position where you absolutely have to answer your phone, because I've been on call. I've lived on the on-call schedule. But if I literally have all my social media apps in a folder called Time Suck as a blatant reminder. So if I reach for one of those, the last thing I see before I get to that app is the big words "time suck."
Yeah.
To remind me, it's like, what am I really doing in here?
Yeah.
I try to get on and post if I need to for the Fallible Man, and then get right back off. Anybody who follows us will tell you I'm not a really great responsive person on social media, because I utilize it as little as possible. I get on, I post, I go away. I don't want to be on there, because I know I will start down that spiral, right? If you start scrolling on Instagram or on Facebook, you're just like, oh, and all this is, and all of a sudden, oh, 2 hours later, I've gotten nothing done. And what did I learn? Nothing. What a value actually came out of this? Pretty much nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to just go over that list again, because I found it so compelling. Discipline, honor, integrity, self-care, which is both spiritual well-being and also something men also don't take care of themselves, but even going to the doctor. Positive mindset, humility, and I think I missed one out of that. Ownership. Yeah, ownership. Very good. Yeah.
Ownership is empowerment.
Yeah.
We live in a time period where it's fashionable and it's popular to be victims. So that's not my responsibility. That's not my fault. I didn't do that. I didn't say ownership. That makes you a victim. You have no control. Somebody has to come save you, or you just had luck.
Yeah.
Ownership, even if it's not your fault, extreme ownership gives you the power to fix it. It puts the ball back in your court. It gives you what you need to make the situation better.
Yeah.
And so I encourage men, even if it's not their fault, especially if it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And I've exercised this at work and in relationships. Even if it's not my fault, I still go, well, you know what? I could have done it better.
Yeah.
I could have put more into this. I could have made sure you understood it better. I could have communicated it better. I failed somewhere. So now I'm analyzing my choices and my interactions with you, because my interaction with you should give you everything you need to go forward for whatever we just talked about or did. Yeah. Right? That's on me. But that means that I alone am responsible for becoming better than that and doing it better.
Yeah.
I had that capability. If we hit this happened, it's like, well, I didn't do that. You can't fix the problem then.
Yeah.
Nothing gets solved. No one gets taken care of. It doesn't get changed at all. And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
The nature of this podcast, I've talked to a lot of people who came from very, very humble beginnings, because a lot of them then have surmounted that and then have wanted to, give the same kind of lesson you're talking about, is empowerment and being a better person. They're strivers. And this whole idea of victimhood is so self-defeating, because once you give the power to somebody else, then you can't make those choices, and you rarely see people who are victims reach for anything higher, because it's always somebody else's fault rather than taking the responsibility. It's such a key value.
this is something that drives me as a dad, because my goal, right? That you're gonna love this. My goal is to be almost Superman or Superman for my daughters, because I want to set the bar so high for their expectations of what men should be, that even if they bring home a dud, he's, heads and shoulders above most guys they could have brought home. Right. I want to set that bar so high that my daughters are like, that doesn't impress me. Oh, you can bench 225? My dad's old. He can do that with ease. What do you got? I want to just the expectations, the way I treat my wife, right? I want to set the expectation for how a man should treat them in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'd like to see your daughters having, whether consciously or not, having this list of 7 values, and
right, yeah,
looking for that. I get
there is by owning I live that way and set that example.
Right.
That's the only way I get there for the men they're going to meet in the future.
Yeah.
Is by making sure that that's the expectation. They see that in me every day, to the point where if they don't see it in another guy, they're like, not my problem, not interested.
Right. Well, Brent, this has really been an interesting conversation. I'm excited to get to dive into your podcast a little bit, because it sounds like our philosophies are very much in tune. I love these seven traits, because I'm trying to do a deep dive on values orientation, and whether you choose exactly these 7 or there are other ones, I think it's really a valuable exercise to establish what those are, and then, like you said, to create some markers and some reminders. There's no problem with putting a reminder, or like you have a whiteboard to inspire you. I know that's, sounds maybe a little hokey to some, but if that's what you need to remind yourself that that's what you're trying to do every day, you do that in business, right? If you got a job, you'd have a to-do list, and you wouldn't think that was odd. So why not do that in your personal life?
Well, and I've got the benefit of my studios at my house. So I have a whole room that is dedicated to my studio. So I have a, classroom size whiteboard over on my sound dampening wall. Right. And I know not everybody has that, but I live on Post-it notes. I have stacks of Post-it notes, and they're everywhere. I have, I don't like my smartwatch, mainly just because it's one more thing that connects me. Right. But I have reminders on my calendar. I have reminders on my watch, things popping up. Hey, you have this in 10 minutes. You have this in 10 minutes. Down to, hey, tonight's date night.
Yeah.
30-minute warning. You're taking your wife out. You should go work on that, right? Hey, tonight's the girls' night. What are we doing? And I start that conversation with them. It's like, oh, I got to wrap up whatever I'm working on. It's almost 4. It's time to switch gears and just be with them, right? So now I'm thinking about the snacks we're having, or if we're watching a movie, or if we're going somewhere, right? But I have reminders for everything, because I don't. My wife knows if she doesn't put it on my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And back to what we're saying, men need that programming time. So whereas women can be in a meeting and planning for that evening with the kids, guys do need to have some time to focus and just make the reservation or whatever it is to put the action steps in place.
Well, we just need to mentally switch gears, because it's a different process for us.
Yeah.
And that's fine, guys. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with you. That's the way that your brain just works, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But once you understand that and are good with that, then you can set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And just work that system.
Great. Well, you can find Brent Dowlen at thefallibleman.com and the Fallible Man podcast. And you got on the Fallible Man, you have information on your coaching services, relationship coaching and personal development coaching, and maybe even some of your bodybuilding or personal.
I actually have a separate website for that. Even I have a separate company called StrongerEverydayTraining.com or .fit. Sorry.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. On my part, I would add gratitude to that list of potential values in your family. And right now at GreatDad.com/gratitude, we've got a course that I'm offering, and it's 50% off with the code podcast 50, because I think gratitude plays in tandem with a lot of these values, and also is
gratitude is incredibly important. I should add it to my list. I really should.
You can go for 8. You don't have
I'll go for 8. We'll upgrade.
Okay. Well, a pleasure talking to you, Brent. We'll see you all next time. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Paul.